Grab any.
Oh, here.
There's one right here. I appreciate that suggestion. Thank you. Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm Rob.
Sir, sir. You're welcome.
I'm trying to.
Somebody waiting to get in. I thought.
Good to let you in, yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. I'm gonna get started. We're in a small group, so I don't have to go over there to the speaker. Were you?
I just muted.
First of all, welcome. Thank you. We try to poll everybody to see who's gonna make it. We thought there were about 4 people that thought they were gonna be able to make it, and we may have a few joining us online, so. But at least there's about 10 of us, and I think 2 gonna join online, so. Apologies for the last meeting, that we canceled that turned out, there were those. All right, there were those that were not sure they were gonna come, and then with the Guardians game, and I'm not gonna point a finger at anybody in particular, but I got an urgent plea early that morning that really wanted to stay and watch the game, and I think that was true for a lot of others, so we just thought we could reschedule before this meeting, but after an attempt, we just decided we'd move on to this meeting. So I thought I wanted to give a couple of comments to get started. We've been getting some feedback of, I think, some members just of the advisory committee trying to understand the process. Where are we? What's in store? And I just wanted to offer a little bit of perspective. So first of all, you're aware that Sandra Turner and I are the facilitators. We are not weighing in on any aspect of this, what you guys think, what you guys are concluding. We're just trying to make sure that the process is continuing to run. Hello, Cindy. But I did want to offer a little bit of perspective. So first of all, this document that you all received from the consultant, the draft at this point of the Gates Mills Comprehensive Plan, is the cornerstone document of what you guys are working on. What that means is, as this draft keeps getting updated, you need to be studying it. And to the extent that you as an individual don't necessarily agree or do agree with what's written in here, it is your role to opine on that and to be vocal about it, pro, con, indifferent, to explore, to, if you're confused, to get further explanation. The consultant is guiding this, is pulling this together based on all of the feedback, most importantly, the feedback from you. Now, as this continues to unfold, the effort will be to try to reach consensus on this document and all the things that it entails. So if that is your job, that's what we're requesting of you, is to really continue to dig in on this document and watch it and participate in it unfolding. Tonight, the initial part of the agenda is to dig in a little deeper on a couple of the key areas, the village center, and I believe the other topic is housing, and that's the two tables. Come back together, and then from there to talk through a lot of the rest of the document and begin to focus or prioritize the other. Hello, Linda. Prioritize the other issues and decide what you guys want to dig in on for the next meeting, including a little further tonight. So now I want to make a couple of side comments. This document, by definition, well, let me stand back. Everybody, I think almost every resident of this village moved into the village because of what they thought they'd like. And they live here because they love the way the village is. And the resistance to change is paramount for all of us. All of us want to make sure that we never lose all the things we love about this village. This document entails some things that may or may not change. And you need to obviously be very sensitive to that and form your own opinions of whether you think the kind of things that are being talked about are worthy for this village to think about, possibly looking into for change. There's going to be increasing feedback from people pro and con that like or don't like aspects of this what you guys are going to come up with. Believe me, the opinions are already flying. I've heard a statement that this is all a waste because the conclusions are already, it's a predetermined conclusion to this whole effort. Nothing could be further from the truth unless somebody in this room already has already determined what this document's going to be. I'm certainly not aware of it. I'm not aware that any of you have already figured out what's in this document. That's what the process is all about. There is nothing predetermined about this process, and that's offensive for people to be trying to spread that word. Rumors fly about, well, this means that this is going to happen or that's going to happen. First of all, this document is unfolding, so we don't know where you're going to come out on recommendations. And after you make your recommendations and present to council, that then goes into a whole nother process with council and the village and all of that. So I just want to emphasize that the burden is on you guys to review this, to keep opining on it, to keep digging in and make this as robust and complete of a document as you can, starting with this meeting, the next meeting, following the next meeting, which is going to be in December. We hope to then be able to go into public forum to begin to talk about this is where you guys are coming out, get further feedback, then have at least another advisory committee meeting with that feedback to see if you guys are ready to bring consensus and feel that you have a complete document, or whether you want to have one more meeting after that. So that's the general agenda. I think it's unfolding exactly as we hoped. I think this is a very exciting document as it's starting to unfold, pro, con, and different. I think it's been a wonderful effort, and I really appreciate all that you guys are doing. And I'll let Chris now jump in and get the meeting moving. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chip. Chip took us through the beginning of the agenda, so I appreciate that. A few other things, though, to just go quickly through the agenda. After I say a little bit more on our progress to date and where we're going from here, I want to then quickly go through the list of goals and objectives and policy framework that you received yesterday. And then on the table is a cryptic version of it where it's just the headings. It's a worksheet. So as we go through, you can start jotting down your thoughts as to whether you agree or disagree or want to discuss. And so that's what we're going to be doing once we get through it. As Chip said, we'll reconvene our group discussion with the future of the village center on the south side, so to my right, and the housing discussion on the left. And then we'll go through the remaining topics and then talk about next steps and open it up for public comment. So with that, I want to just reiterate quickly now, since Chip did go through this. So this is our fourth meeting. Our first couple of meetings were right before and after the community survey was done. CT Consultants did an extensive existing conditions analysis with trends, et cetera. And then with your input and the input from the community survey, we formulated a first cut of vision and goals. And that was what we reviewed at our second meeting. And that's the gist of what was presented at the neighborhood meetings and the overall town hall public forum. Now we're in the process of refining the goals and objectives and defining the strategies. And with that, it's very common to start throwing out specific development actions as well, or developing the action plan, I should say. So tonight, what we're trying to do is expand upon our list of goals, objectives, and strategies to the extent that this sparks discussion, and to encourage you to think very critically, as Skip said, what's appropriate for the community as a whole. After that, so we'll have a meeting in December, and then after that, we hope to do the second town hall meeting, where we will lay out the list of goals and objectives and the action plan, the strategies and action, and ask everyone who attends the town hall meeting to weigh in on what they agree with or disagree with, or how they would change it. So definitely this is a work in progress. Nothing that was presented in writing tonight or yesterday is cast in stone. And that's what you're here for, is to help refine and expand as possible, much as possible. So with that, I just want to quickly go through the 7 goals that have been developed and presented to the community. And we've done some tweaking from the town hall meeting and neighborhood meetings. But it's basically, we're focusing on, number 1, rural village character. So we heard from a lot of people that make sure whatever we do going forward in the future, we retain our rural character. It's a small village, it's 2,000 or so population. And that's what we like about it. So a lot of people weighed in on that. Harmony with nature. The whole natural environment really contributes to that rural village character. And so that's critical, but that means that preserving the environment in ways that are listed here, preserving the character along the environment and habitat along the Chagrin River, addressing low impact green infrastructure strategies. So there were things related, a lot of what's already on the books in terms of tree protection and stormwater management and things like that, but making sure they're as tight as they can be to protect the nature, the environment of the community. The third item is community pride and engagement. And under this, guys, is where we've put in the whole discussion on the village center, because a lot of people have commented on how important the village center is, how all of the community events bring people to the village center. But it's not about economic development per se. So it's not about creating this larger than currently existing, expansive economic or retail district. So that's where it's part of the community pride and engagement, because this is the center of many of the community events. So that's why the community center is part of number 3. Number 4 is the desirable housing in neighborhoods. And this is things that we had heard in the community survey about preserving the existing housing, the existing neighborhoods, making sure that there is not new development that changes the character of those neighborhoods, and managing then what allowance, there is limited allowance for new housing construction because so much of the village is either already owned by the village itself, owned by the Land Conservancy or the Metro Parks. And a lot of the remaining area is already subdivided into or divided into housing lots. There's very little remaining that's truly vacant land eligible or large enough for a subdivision. Number 5 is access and connections. So there was discussion about wanting to move around the village in a convenient way and talking about trails and sidewalks and fostering physical activity. So that's what number 5 is. Number 6 is quality amenities and services. And this is also where people talked a lot about all of the community events that are planned at the village center, as well as the service department, how wonderful the service department is, and the police, etc. So that's where action steps and goals and objectives related to the services are. And number 7 is sensible fiscal policies. So a lot of people on the committee, and we've heard in the survey that whatever we do, whatever the village does going forward to make sure that it retains its solvency, that its fiscal policies ensure this long-term viability of the village. So with that, I thought we'd just go through these. So I went through the goals. So now I'll hit on the objectives that are under the goals. So I'm going to, so you have the objectives, the A1, and then the some of the strategies underneath it. They're the A11 example. So I'm just going to highlight the objectives under each one of them so that we're all aware of how much is encompassed in this draft set of goals, objectives, and strategies. So for the rural village character, there were 3 objectives: preserving, protecting, and enhancing areas, large areas of natural land, undeveloped land. So, and the Land Conservancy is the main driver of that. Item A2 is protecting important scenic view sheds and natural landscaping along major roads. So that's a key component of retaining and preserving the rural village character, because most people, when they're going through the village, that's what they see. You see it from the road. So that's an important aspect to manage and make sure that it's being protected. And A3 is protecting and increasing the tree canopy. So that was one of the, yes, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, when I think of rural village character, I don't just think about the physical characteristics. I think about the true characters in this village, the people. And I
Okay.
think we're missing the people and the diversity of people and what all these different types of people with different backgrounds, different interests bring to the village. And I think that's lacking in a lot of what we got yesterday. And by the way, I really object to being given this information a day ahead of time. There is too much for us to digest and think about, and it's unfair to us and it's unfair to the village. It shortchanges this process.
Thank you. So as we go through, if you can point out, I would encourage you to jot down where you think it's appropriate to add your statement about the diversity of the population, where that makes sense and how we can incorporate that into the text. The second goal, goal B, is harmony with nature, and there are 3 objectives here. Encouraging and facilitating the use of alternative and clean energy systems. That was one of the topics a committee member had brought up. The second one is ensuring that publicly and privately owned open spaces are well maintained with the best management practices. And the third item is a night sky type of thing, so that as you have this enormous tree canopy, that you're ensuring that the dark sky environment is retained and preserved as well. Goal C, community pride and engagement. So here we also have 3 objectives. And the first one is maintaining, enhancing the village center for its active community interaction. So as I mentioned before, this is where so many people have said in the survey that they meet and greet their neighbors. So there are a lot of ideas under this C1, and this is something then for the Village Center group to weigh in on how this section could be expanded. C2, fostering a welcoming environment for all residents. So we had heard from a variety of people about expanding activities to encourage new residents to get to know one another and get to know things about the village. And we also heard from the neighborhood meetings how people were they enjoyed meeting their neighbors through the summer neighborhood meetings. So that was something that we would want to encourage going forward as well. C3, increasing awareness of local events, committees, and other ways that foster community interaction. So this objective has a lot underneath it, but it's also thinking about ways to improve communications and bringing the communications up to current standards with social networking and things. Actually, C3, 2, 3, and 4 are also areas. So it's celebrating the history of Gates Mills, continuing historic preservation, and I'm sorry. And then the last one is conservation easements as a way of protecting the town, the historic town pattern. Goal D, desirable housing in neighborhoods. So this is also for the housing group to weigh in on and discuss further detail. So D1 is encouraging investment in the existing housing stock, and there are a number of action steps or strategies underneath this related to ways of encouraging people to maintain their housing stock. D2, provide housing choices that are consistent and compatible with the density of the surrounding housing. So this, I would recall for your attention, or bring to your attention, just to remind you of what Bruce Rinker had said, making sure that the zoning in the village is defensible. And so one way to make it defensible is making sure that you are consistent with or compatible with the density of the housing that surrounds that particular area. And that in looking at that, there are a few different strategies that we've identified related to the conservation district and related to the A1 district and some of its terminology and how it does respect the current development pattern in areas where the lots have already been created. D3 is expanding housing options for older retiring residents. We have some strategies under there as well for the group to weigh in on in a few minutes. E is access and connections. This one will require or does require additional expansion, but the two objectives so far are maintaining the quality road infrastructure, and the second one is increasing pedestrian and biking facilities throughout the village. Quality amenities and services. So this addresses the safety services, and F2 is identifying ways to help residents age in place from a services standpoint. F3 is providing more community activities and services to meet the needs of young children. F4 is continuing to work with the Mayfield School District, and that is related to the discussion that has occurred so far in the issues with the school district. I would say that what we can do in terms of this comprehensive plan is recognize the issues and continue to support working with the school district and exploring ways to improve the relationships and ways to promote the school district. Item F5, continuing to permit and regulate non-residential uses in limited locations. And part of that, and that shows on the housing map, is thinking through what happens if a non-residential use either sells their property or goes out of business per se. And so this plan, the recommendation is this plan, think through what should happen if that use goes out. And then that land becomes available for something different. So to put that, to think that through. F6 is exploring ways to improve electric service to residents. So there were some specific recommendations for that. And 7 is improving the internet service and to make sure everybody in the village is able to work remotely from home. So that was a key component of the survey as well. Last is the sensible fiscal policies. And again, you can see here, these have to be explored further and expanded. And so our commitment is to, after tonight's meeting, at our next meeting, we will have flushed all of these areas that are not yet well-defined and, using the comments from tonight's meeting, as well as what we've heard to flush those out as well. So with that, and just quickly go over these 2 graphics that you received, and the maps are on the table. So how we arrived at this is from the discussions at the September meeting. So the village center map shows the draft objectives and strategies, and these came out of the discussion at the September meeting. And so again, this is based on what we have notes from. And so your job now is to react to this. Is this what you thought okay. So I'm seeing people shake their heads. So what we are doing is showing you what we heard, what people provided notes to. So to the extent that this isn't what you talked about, then your goal tonight is to fix it, to revise it, reframe it. The idea is showing it on a map makes it easier for you to weigh in and say yes or no, scratch it, do something different. The same with the housing discussion. Again, these are drafts and they are for the committee to weigh in on and expand upon, refine, revise, etc. So is there a question?
I had a question. Looking at the picture on the left, there are those dotted perimeters, green, blue, and red. I was looking for
Oh, a
a place
definition.
where it showed what does that mean and what's the green and the red and the blue. Is that just generally to catch our eye to different
So going to
areas,
the
or are those like paths, or what's the color code?
my apologies. So the green is north of, well, let's start with the center. So the village center, that's the red dotted line, that's the area that's currently zoned for special use. And that's where the administration buildings are and the retail across the street. To the north of it, everything in green is either zoned A4, which is the 7,500 square foot lots, or you have a little bit of land that's zoned A1, which is the 5 acre minimum or whatever pre-existed the 1998 zoning change. And then you also have the nursery area that currently is a special use district. So that's primarily where, based on what we had heard, housing is appropriate, not extending the commercial into the housing, into that area. Going southward is the area primarily centered around the Hunt Club. So it's on the other side of the river, and includes the area zoned for the Hunt Club, which is also a special use district. And so it's provided just to be able to say, talk about each area individually.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions related to these before we go back to the 2 specific topics?
have come from quote unquote brainstorming that happened in September. And those have been documented as discussions. And we are to address those in our group, small groups today.
Right, yes. Right. Again, this is a draft and this is showing you how we would take the comments that have been made and turn it into text in a comprehensive plan. And again, your goal tonight is to say, some people think that, but not everybody, we're not sure about that, or we disagree and we would rewrite it this way. And again, I want to assure you that even tonight, it's still a draft. Whatever you say tonight is still a draft, but we have to move from discussion into putting stuff down in writing so that you can react to it. So I don't, go ahead. Mhm. So the idea was that you would spend some time this evening with your group, and I don't know what to say to you that your group isn't still intact. I apologize. I mean, so take the two of you and get the reaction with the rest of your group. The idea tonight is give us a sense of direction. Again, it's not putting anything down in stone that won't be changed. Our goal is to continue to move forward. So we will present things to you, fully expecting you to refine it, to let us know what's been misinterpreted, what's that sort of thing. So again, at the next meeting, we will give you an updated version of what we've distributed tonight. We'll take all of the comments from what was the comments that were made tonight, fold it in, revise, update, expand for areas, again, based on what you've said tonight, and go through this again at the next meeting to make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
Chris, one of the things you asked us to do at the last session was identify information that we needed in
Mhm.
order to do what you just suggested we
Right.
do.
Yep.
And I think we need a lot of information, which we haven't communicated to you yet.
Okay. All right.
But for example, I don't see how we can do this topic justice without having inventory of village-owned properties, without knowing what shops have 10-year leases or lease options and things of that nature,
I would,
without discussing the future of the post office, the Gates Mills Elementary School. There's so many things that we need to talk about. So to put things on a map, I think was probably extremely premature. We were just brainstorming. So
I would say that the level of detail that you're getting into is one of the recommendations is to hire a consultant to do a more detailed plan for the village center. We are not getting into that level of detail of understanding who's got leases and how long. the
no,
leases
but
are.
you're talking about the Hunt Club going under, or you mentioned another one, and the church, things of that nature, and that was mentioned on one of these things. And I guess I don't see why we should focus on one that's a highly unlikely prospect versus another one which is far more likely with the post office. I mean, it's just there just doesn't seem any kind of continuity or consistency in how we're approaching these different properties.
Sharon, I'll speak, if I could, I'll speak to that. And I agree with what you're saying. It's been a frustrating day for me to try to get my arms around what we've been presented with, but let's just take what we've got and let's say we don't like that. And so like one of the other examples that struck me was, well, let's think about how the elementary school could be reused if and when it ever would go away. Like, what's that? Scratch that. So let's just Because for the same reason you said, why should we talk about when the hunt club goes away? It's like a remote thing.
We need a discussion about the elementary school.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against the elementary school. I don't, it's. I don't have anything against the elementary school. What I do think we need to do is look at how to make Mayfield School District excellent. And when you have 4 elementary schools, just stop, let me finish. When you have 4 schools, and this is probably not the time to talk about it. I mean, I'm happy to do
What-
it, but if
please
you'd prefer to.
Please
Okay.
finish what your comment and then we will move on. Because this part of the meeting is for the people who are sitting around these
Right.
tables.
There are 4 elementary schools in the Mayfield School District. Mayfield Elementary, Gates Mills Elementary has fewer than 100 students in it. The other 3 elementary schools have between, like 400 and 600 students. It's extremely expensive. We're looking at a tax levy from Mayfield School District in 2024. And we need to start thinking about, the superintendent said they're keeping the school open because of politics, not financial reasons. We just need to explore whether those politics still hold water. So I don't have anything against the elementary school, but in reading about the outside perspectives committees, the views towards Mayfield School District, we need to bolster that up. It was an excellent school district and we need to get it back to where it was. And one of the bottlenecks is the middle school. That's also a 100-year-old building. How many 100-year-old buildings do we expect this school district to manage? I mean, there's a lot of discussion to be had, open discussion, as opposed to just assuming that it's there, it's excellent, blah, blah, blah. Let's just talk about it.
And with that, I would ask you to do the same for the other buildings that are in the village center area. And so in the event, so part of the discussion tonight could be to identify the different buildings and say what you think their longevity is and how important is it to address their reuse. So again, I want you to think about all that's written down as a jumping point for your discussion tonight and to refine it, to correct it, to expand upon it as you see fit based on what you know and what you've heard, the discussion among the committee and what you've seen from the results of the community survey and the town hall and neighborhood meetings. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move on. So the goal was to, now I'd say wrap up the previous discussions. So what that means is continue from the point of last meeting to the extent that you have some consistency. The cheat sheet that looks like this was a way to quickly go through it without being burdened by some of the explanatory text. But the idea is to go through, identify the things you agree with versus you disagree with, and discuss what's missing. So what should be added, what the things you disagree with. If there's consensus around your group, then your recommendation could be to delete that, or your recommendation could be to revise it. And the idea was that after 20 minutes or so it's not a whole lot of time, but to reach some consensus among your group and then talk about it among the entire group. So we've got 2 different conversations going on. And then at the time, let's see, at about, in about a half an hour, then I would ask you to do a report out and go through this and give your thoughts on what's written down so that everyone else at the other table can hear what your comments are. And then we can have a short discussion among the full group. Okay. All right. And so Sarah is sitting at the housing table and I'm going to join you at the village center table.
Okay, so C1s are chart.
I think you can switch. Okay. Okay.
More maps if you want.
Oh, my God.
Okay, that's fine. It's just first.
Service
and second.
Department. No. I think that's.
All right, let me just give you a time check. So we're at about 6:45. And so we were hoping to go a little faster than what we're doing. And so the question, what I would propose is to go for another 15 minutes to 7 o'clock. And then wrap up with the groups and then do a quick report out as to just the summary of what each of the discussions entailed and then move on. Is everyone okay with extending this for another 15 minutes? We're good? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so that's, so C13A. Yeah. Yeah.
And I can say,
Cindy will take that over and you'll
All right, are we all ready then to do our reporting out? So Mike has graciously turned all your mics back on. So you can talk and share the discussion from your table. So Sharon is going to go first with the village center, and we use the checklist to go through and basically say agree, disagree, and there was some commentary on some of the points. So Sharon, you
Okay,
can get
sure.
take a-
Okay, recognizing the center of the village as a place, yes, and we want to call it the village center. We think the mixed-use zoning district requires more discussion. Identifying the boundaries of the village center, expanding it northward to the nursery, we said no. South to the hunt club, I think we disagreed on that, or maybe there was a little more discussion to be had, but we did not want to extend it up to the nursery. Explore opportunities for limited additional retail uses in the village center area. Yes, expanding the uses on the vacant land north of the library to business or residential. We wanted to discuss that more. Allowing temporary uses to test the viability of different enterprises, yes. Conducting a feasibility study to determine the optimal configuration and amount of retail service uses in the area, so on and so forth. Not yet, and it requires further discussion. Identifying ways to create more themed events to support retail activities. We think using the community house to hold periodic market day events is a good idea. Supporting the creation of a village center business organization. No, we didn't think there were enough players in that. So C is not applicable. Expanding the use of Gates Mills Elementary School to ensure it remains a valued community resource, and working with the district to prepare a reuse strategy in the event the district determines it no longer needs the building. We said yes to that. Expanding the use of the elementary school. There was some discussion about cannibalizing the use of the library to sort of prop up the elementary school activities. And we also thought that it's really up to the school to handle utilizing its property. Encouraging more housing consistent with the density of housing currently on Colvin Road. We deferred to you guys on that one. That's your problem. Providing more access to the Chagrin River in the village center area. We didn't want to provide more access. We thought there was enough access. We just thought it needed to be promoted more effectively to residents. Ensuring there are adequate parking spaces to accommodate any increase in activities in the village center. It has to do with the mixed use. We think the zoning committee takes care of that, but that's, I think it's a no-brainer that you would want to make sure, but anyhow, we sort of, well, I don't have a clear answer on that other than probably yes. Fostering a welcoming environment for all residents and expanding and facilitating new resident activities. Yes, it's happening and we'd like it to continue. Encouraging neighborhood get-togethers. We thought it was out of our scope, especially since we're looking at the village center. One thing we talked about is better definition of neighborhoods, and it's really up to the neighborhoods to take care of that. Increasing awareness of local events and so forth, yes. Expanding and updating communication methods, yes. Preserving and celebrating the history of Gates Mills through historic preservation, we think that's done. Continuing to promote the preservation of historic structures, especially ones that are easily visible from public places, yes. And utilizing conservation easements to protect important aspects of the neighborhood town pattern and private ownership. We thought that was worthy of further discussion.
So why don't we let the housing group then go through their list, and then we can open it up for discussion first with since the village center has a subset of housing, we'll let the housing then open up the discussion. So if you can go through your list.
Okay, I hope everyone jumps in at the table to help me here where I'm missing out here. But I think overall, we agreed with most of these points going down here as far as D1, encourage investment in the existing housing stock, updates, remodels. We had a really good conversation about this as far as we've all experienced some frustrations with trying to make upgrades and modernizations to our house, to our homes. And we were saying that D 1.1, maybe just some wordsmithing here, but to just make it review, update, and remove streamline, but modernize how our review process operates in the village so that we're more up to date with other communities similar to ours as far as making the process less cumbersome and more timely. Jump down to D 1.2, reevaluate the history. Sarah will speak to this, but we kind of cut a lot of that A, B, and C out as far as we just focus more on making sure that our system is for remodeling people is a much easier process than what it is today. Did I get that for you? Okay, so D1.
Could I?
Yeah,
you did
please. Yeah.
There was another thought, which was my own, so forgive me if you don't
No, I'm
all
fine,
agree
you
with
go.
it, which was streamlining and making it easier, the process, and faster and more user-friendly. That's great. But personally, I didn't think we ought to be making the rules any more lax or the standards, okay, the standards, but the process itself.
Right.
Can't go wrong with
Right,
streamlining the process.
streamlining the review process,
Rob, that's you.
And we,
but you don't like the,
Subcommittee, we didn't like that.
And point about some interim access to the recommendations that not just to expand the time frame to the next meeting.
Right, and I think that, I mean, we're not trying to spell out everything that should be done to make it user friendly, but things like the ability to have staff review in between meetings so that if you're told you need to work on this, this, and this, you don't have to wait 30 days. You potentially could have some staff review, maybe understanding there's limited staff at the village. You could have members of of the review boards, fill that role. So lots of ways, again, to make it more user friendly without, while maintaining the high standards.
well, and we did like B because the idea was to have more guidelines for the architects involved so that they understand, so they have a way to meet these guidelines. It's not so arbitrary. Like sometimes they don't know why something wasn't liked by the committee. They wanted clear direction.
gotcha.
Thank you, team. We had a really good conversation about it. D 1.2, reevaluate the historic district regulations and boundary. Really, these next couple D 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, we didn't have any objection to it because it's promoting different, resources that we can utilize in the village. So we found no objection. We were fine with those. D2, provide housing choices that are consistent, compatible with the density of surrounding housing. This we had some spirited conversation about. We want it to be a little less technical in language. These next couple points, in theory, we agree with it. I mean, Rob, I'm going to look at you because you had a lot of, we just, we want to tread lightly and be very careful how we go down and open into these new roads of housing and development.
Okay,
And we're a little concerned that we don't want to get bogged down in the details. We want to take a more broader scope.
okay. So do you have some guiding language or something did Sarah take some notes that can help us reframe this?
Yes, I would say, Sarah, would you agree? Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I could add some more.
please.
Under D2.1, it talks about the number of lots in Class A1 and if something could be rebuilt. I think that was so detailed to us, we don't know what's behind all that. But the concept, and we thought that if you could write the concept and not get lost in the details, the concept is that we don't think we should be putting rules in place to reduce the number of homes that are already here. So if there's 3 homes on 3 little lots and they all go away and someone combines the lots, they should still be able to do 3 homes. We think that's what this means, but it was so technical.
Okay.
If you could just write it in like the idea.
Well, we,
Write
thank
the
you for
idea.
speaking that, so we have it on the record and we can, we can make that
Okay,
change.
But, and then,
Not increasing the number of
Right,
structures.
yeah,
So.
and
if
D2 in
it
general,
burns down, you can rebuild it just because it's not on 5 acres. Right?
I didn't hear that.
I said, if your house burns down and you're not on 5 acres, you should be able to.
If your house burns down and you're not on 5 acres, you should be able to rebuild it on the same place. Yeah.
right.
But overall, we thought this was wading into the zoning, I guess, question. And, but it didn't really come out and really say that. So
Oh.
the way D2 is written, the bold part, that's basically, I think, code for what Bruce Rinker was talking about and what you alluded to, Kristen, in the beginning. And I tried to make as strong a point as I could, but still being polite, that we should be very, 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 very careful if we're going to touch the zoning code, because I think if you crack the door, it's a wedge that is going to be very hard to shut. So personally, I'd start from the proposition, we're not changing anything in the zoning code unless there's some like emergency. That's just my instinct. And Will basically said, as soon as the lawyers get involved, you're lost. And, you know, I was happy for that, being a lawyer. So I just put an extreme warning from my own point of view on what I just said.
And most of us agree. Not all.
Yes, I rebutted quite a bit. Because I said the whole point we're here is we're not touching zoning. We cannot touch zoning because that is council's job.
Mhm.
But we can offer guidance as to where we think we should be going. And so I was coming from a planning perspective of saying, this is a guide plan. That's why we're here, trying to look at and find that middle ground. And to me, Bruce Rinker is saying the exact opposite of what my colleague here was saying, in that if we don't, and you're just making arbitrary decisions that aren't based on, that's where you get into danger. But anyhow.
Well, I would agree with Will in the sense that what we are addressing right now are policies. You implement your policy through the zoning regulations. So to the extent we are talking about ideas and concepts and policies, we want to take them as far as people are comfortable with going. But then let's say if you were to, any one of these things under D, they would, in order to be implemented, they would have to go through a zoning code update process as a entirely separate process that would go through and be very rigorous in terms of writing the text so that it is very confined in terms of where and what would be permitted. So note taken in terms of the concern about not wanting to open up the door. I think that's something that's been said over and over and over again. And so the goal is to figure out how, if there are any aspects of the zoning ideas, let's say, because they're not zoning text itself, but the policies behind the zoning code, if there's anything that should be addressed in the comprehensive plan.
Well, one of the things that we kept touching upon or coming back to is there, based on these maps, any ideal places within the village that would be, premier for development? We hate cluster homes. We don't like the way it sounds, but, townhomes or smaller than one, one house dwellings. We really didn't have a consensus on that. I would say we were divided just at a small group.
So my apologies, a deeper dive into the conservation development regulations are actually in under the rural environment. And I should have directed you back to that. So I think the key with the conservation development is, currently the code requires a minimum 25 acres to do the conservation development. You currently get no density bonus. It's 1 unit for every 5 acres. So if you have a 25-acre parcel, you get 5 houses. The zoning code currently allows single-family detached, 2 units attached and 3 units attached. That's currently allowed in the conservation development district. But regardless, you're still on a 25-acre parcel, you're still restricted to 5 houses. So you could have 2 buildings, one with 2 units attached and one with 3 units attached. And that's the most you could get on 25 acres. So the other key to the conservation development is the minimum 50% of that 25 acres has to be set aside and protected through a conservation easement or some other mechanism that it's preserved in its entirety or, in perpetuity as, it has no development value at all. So those are the existing regulations in place.
Yeah, we didn't go there because it wasn't under D,
Right, I know, yes.
but it needs to be dealt with.
Okay,
But actually I thought there was some consensus that we were oriented towards the village center as the logical place there was some consensus there rather than, and feeling like that, you can make a more of a rationale because there already is greater density, there's smaller lots, and that if you just pick a spot somewhere else, it's harder to defend that. Why are we picking that over some other spot?
Yeah, I think that's that captures it really nicely. And I think we kept liking the word consider. We're not saying here, not there, here, yes, it's in the
Mhm.
future. This should guide discussion in the future. And we like the way the word consider was used in talking about adaptive reuse for non-residential structure, things like that. And to us,
Mhm.
it's like, makes more sense to have those conversations in the village center.
Mhm.
And again, without being specific, but saying, that's the kind of thing, if there's careful review, within zone that there was, I think, a general openness to being supportive of those kinds of things.
okay. All right. So where are you on your list?
We are at D22, encourage the use of the conservation development regulations as a mechanism to building single-family homes as well as 2 to 3 dwellings. I think we discussed that, but we're fine with that. Okay with that. Identify potential development areas within the surrounding village center. Just to Ann's point, we had a lot of conversation of, we can't say what's the future of the Sugar Valley Nursery. We can't say what the future is of the Hunt Club or elementary school, but we would be open, including in the plan, that those would be, locations that future development would be something to consider and discuss.
So I'll tell you what I said to the Village Center group, because we had that conversation too. So the purpose of the comprehensive plan is to think about potential reuse of properties, whether it's the nursery or whether it's the Gates Mills Elementary School. You don't have control right now over what the future holds for those properties. But we are, when the village went around and rezoned the entire or 93% of the village to the A1 district with a minimum of 5-acre lots, they weren't concerned with what's this person going to do with their lot. So that's the manner in which, obviously, privately owned property, as long as they continue to do whatever they're permitted to do in their current zoning district, then the comprehensive plan is meaningless to that property. But the idea is, and again, this is for your consideration, but the idea is to think through right now. Now, obviously, things will change, which is why comprehensive plans should be updated periodically, but the thought is, to think based on what you know right now, what would be an acceptable use if the property were to be put up for sale, let's say, and somebody else were to buy it.
And that's what we're saying. We're
Oh.
saying that
Openness to considering.
in the village, in those select locations,
Okay,
which would be the nursery,
okay,
the Gates Mills Elementary School, and the Hunt Club.
okay,
I think, is the larger pieces.
gotcha. Okay, I'm, great.
And again, I think it's like, we didn't want to like point locations. We were saying in this general area. So we're not,
Right.
there's no, marker on any specific site. It's this area made more sense to us to consider those kinds of opportunities as they arose in the future,
Gotcha.
if they would arise.
Mhm, mhm. That's where the overlap occurs with the
Mhm.
village center, right? Okay, sounds good.
So I think the D24, proactively consider adaptive reuse regulations for non-residential structures that contribute to the character of the village. We were fine with that. D3, expand housing options for older and retiring residents. Again, kind of back to the point of, we're fine with that as long as it keeps with the character of the village, and they're very, we continue our standards where they're at and don't drop them or lower them in the next, in an effort to try and make it more accommodating. So D3.1, consider allowing accessory dwelling units. We said with, the appropriate design requirements. We would be open to that. D3.2, encourage all new housing and remodeling projects to include universal design features that make it easier for a person to age in place. We said so long as this is not obtrusive to the neighboring properties and keeps with the character
Mhm,
of the village
mhm.
and architectural style. D3.3, provide and promote senior-oriented services to help seniors age in place. We don't see any issue with that, but we're also, not trying to change and reinvent the wheel
Mhm.
around the village. So, openness.
Okay. All right, so the group that wasn't part, the village center group, any comments, any questions to the housing group? No? All right, housing group, any comments or, well,
Well, I agree with what Rob said. Regarding the zoning.
I'm not making any changes to it.
Yes.
all right, housing group, any comments, questions for the village center group?
I had one question, only that I think I missed the answer to C.1.2A, expand business uses on vacant land north of the library. I just didn't hear the answer. Could you talk a little bit about that? C.1.2A. Discussion is good, right? I
Okay.
think that particular parcel was dealt with 20 years ago. When was that whole plan done? I think, Scott, was that your mom who was the mayor then? There was an impact committee that I was part of, and there was a lot of discussion about what was going to end up over there and whether that lot should become part of the retail area. And the decision then was no. Personally, I think we should be very cautious about more bricks and mortar on that spot. And somebody, I think, wrote or I read that as part of this process, well, that area is not in use, so why don't we make use of it? That was a little bit offensive to me because I think it actually is in use. It just happens to not be a business use. So I think we should be very, very careful with that piece of property. If I were on your committee, that's what I would say.
I agree with Rob again.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you all very much. And so we'll collect your comments before you leave. So with that, I thought we would go back and what I'd like to do is use the checklist and do a show of hands as we go through. So I'm going to go through on this rural village character A1 and ask if agree or disagree or discuss. And so we'll spend a few minutes going through identifying what you want to discuss, and then we'll come back and delve into these items under goal A. So A1 is the overarching topic. So A11, A11A and B, anyone agree with that? Okay. Anyone want to disagree with that? Okay, and anyone,
But I want to add something because some of the levy funds are now going to the village. And they're supposed to be, those funds are supposed to be used for conservation as the village deems necessary. I think there should be a little bit more or a lot more collaboration between the funds that the village has and the funds that the Land Conservancy has. There should be an overall overreaching plan, how those funds should be used.
okay. Any conversation on A11 with what Linda just said?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you that without the Land Conservancy, there would be a whole lot of additional building and there would be a whole lot less large expanses of natural areas, period. I mean, the Conservancy is almost singularly responsible, and the residents who have paid their taxes to fund the Conservancy are almost single-handedly responsible for that. Some of the things that we're talking about here are, I find them kind of oddly inconsistent when we talk about, you know, making more access or making more this or doing all that. And then we're saying preserve, protect, and enhance large expanses. I mean, we feel a little, and I don't mean to use a pejoratively, but we feel a little schizophrenic on, we're switching to one and then we say, well, we want to do this, but we want to do this, but we want to do this, we want to do this. I mean, if goal A, which I think is pretty appropriately named in of the goals that are stated here, protect the character of the village, if that's our number one thing, then that's our number one thing. And I would humbly submit that's our number one thing.
So let me just make sure I understand. So in your opinion, based on what you just said, that you can't do both? That there's not areas of the community where the preserving the natural areas, like in the village center, is not where that would pertain. So I'm just asking the question in terms of, can we say A1 to preserve and protect, and that's a goal of the comprehensive plan? Say that and have specific areas where and how we would do that, but then on the other hand, have another area of the village where there's a different goal.
No, I'm not saying in total, I'm just saying in some instances, there's a little bit of a push me, pull you going on with this. You know, we want to, you know, we talk about in our plan about, you know, making a path here that would go through the Arboretum and And there already is a path there. It's dirt, but there's a path there. If you want to go walk that, you can walk that. And so the more access, the more things, the more activity we create around it, the less preserve, protect, enhance large spaces we're gonna have. And so there's a yeah, you can probably carefully manage it, but you can't have it both ways, all the way. You're gonna give up some to get the other and vice versa. So that's,
Sharon?
Also add that preserving is not just stopping development, it's also taking care of the property. And we've got.
Agree.
We've got the hillside protection that, I don't know that that's happening. I live on Chagrin River Road and I face, but I face, certain field property on Sherman. All the leaves are gone now. I can see so many trees have fallen because the gullies have cut in, standard is not this year. The gullies have cut in. We need to do more to protect that. Contact our flooding, we're facing for flooding. We need to focus more, not just on monitoring and stopping development, but monitoring for a long time. It's important, but it's not happening now.
Okay.
And I think we need to collaborate.
needs maintenance.
We need maintenance,
We
but we
need a
need
plan.
collaboration.
Okay, so would you, I would just ask you, if you look at a goal B, B2, if that's something we can address, would you agree, address it in B2? So that, say, I think what you were saying, Sharon, is make sure there's a resource management plan for the land that's being conserved. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, some of these, the property on Chagrin River Road, on the west side of Chagrin, between Mayfield and out Sherman, before you get to, I mean, the vines have to be cut there because that's what's killing all the trees. I mean, yeah, right. But you're never gonna, we gotta keep the woods. You gotta.
Income, big invasive running here to Mayfield too.
Right.
I actually talked around about it. It's like, there's just not the resources available.
Right.
Well, and enforcement of the existing rules about tree cutting, and tree clearing, and making people aware of what the rules are. All of a sudden, there's, trucks that show up and they're clear cut trees. Nobody's there to stop it unless the neighbors call the village.
Taking all of that into account, also looking at, we're going to see more extreme weather, we're going to see more over this time. And yet, there's so many things in this document that we suggested, it talks about increasing density, about changing the density, to increase density, or make it easier. And in this day and age, that's not the direction. It's going to be a those parcels were not developed for a variety of reasons. One is because we're not thinking about the people who get down in the implication on the people on River Road, or the street, and so forth. But I think that's been a lot of it. There's just too much focus on development. And not enough on
All right, anything else on A? So we talked about variety of things. Yes, Kelly?
I
Or
have some
Keely?
comments. Yeah. The comments, the recommendations to an A12 to update the village's conservation development regulations. There's some things in the draft text that I think should just be
further clarified. For example, I'm not against including the consideration of vegetative screening as one factor in deciding where open space would go in a conservation development, but to the point that somebody else just made, there are a lot of development constraints already in the village in terms of steep slopes and floodplains. And in my opinion, those areas should be protected first, where you're prioritizing where the open space needs to go before. And then if you're able to protect those sensitive areas and they still have additional open space that they need to meet to fit the 50% requirement of conservation development, then you can screen the road. But to have road screening and have somebody build on a steep slope that could cause major erosion problems and problems for neighbors and for the streams, in my opinion, it's just important that if you're going to add view sheds, that it just be clear that it's more important to avoid building on steep slopes and floodplains first.
Well, I would reiterate that the village already has regulations. So those environmental regulations override what you can do with a house on the property. So, but your point is well taken, that we could order the order of significance in terms of if you have, let's say, if you have a lot of different types of land on that piece of property, on that, say, 25 acres, what's the highest priority? What's the second and third? So I think, okay. All right, anything else on A1 or moving down to A2? Anything on A3, A2, A3, anything left, anything else to discuss under A?
We just have some time to, after this meeting is done, I'm sure it'd be welcome to have our comments if we had thoughts.
Sure, absolutely, definitely.
Just in the essence of time.
Right. So it's 7:43 right now. So if you want, then I would suggest this might be a good time to stop, open it up to community comment. But before we do that, so from what Lindsay said, based on what Lindsay said, and the next time we meet, we can pick up where we left off and keep going in this manner. What I would ask you then, since we have this checklist, is if each of you could fill it out and get back to us. Maybe send, and if you want, we could, we can send this to you as a Word document so you can fill it out. Just a A for agree, disagree, or discuss. And that could give us a roadmap into identifying where the priority is for the discussion at the next meeting. So our next meeting is scheduled for December 15th. It's a Thursday. It's, we're limited as to when this building is available. So the building isn't available on Tuesday, the 13th. That's a council meeting. So how many people are likely to come to a meeting on December 15th at 5:30? So okay. All right, so we will keep that date. It's the only Thursday so far. That's when we ask people for their day and time. Thursday was the third out of the three choices. But again, we're only going with the Thursday because it's December. Yes.
I was just going to make, if the attendance is similar to this, could we postpone that December meeting till January, just in the essence of getting more people here to have a better conversation?
Absolutely. That's agreeable with us.
I mean, I think you could find that out pretty quickly if you ask people, in an email to all 30 of us tomorrow, if they would be able to attend that meeting. I just think it would be a better discussion to have.
More attendance, right?
When did you want this back? A week before whatever the next meeting date is?
Well, if we're looking at a meeting in January, then I would ask you to get it back sooner rather than later, so that you're not too far from the discussion. So.
Just a counter comment, thinking about kind of what we've experienced at these meetings. And that is, we postponed the meeting in October, again, for good reason, but you lose a little bit of energy and impetus, and that may have accounted for some of the smaller attendance this evening. So I guess I would argue in favor of kind of continuing this, and Chip and I would be, more than happy to encourage people, make calls, encourage people, make sure that we have a better attendance. Because obviously it's really important, although just from being an observer, you did some wonderful work tonight. So, it didn't diminish, I don't think, the output by a lack of maybe a few people being here.
Lindsay, I certainly agree with your concern. I think I'd like to maybe send out a poll and get a sense of, I'm not even sure Saturday morning or off sleep might be better than a work night, but some people shake their heads and say no. So again, we keep trying, and we thought we were going to get about 4 or 5 more people here tonight than we got, and then things dissipated in the last few minutes. So, by the time December, we're concerned about, because it's obviously holidays. Maybe we'll come up with 3 or 4 different dates, including in early December, January, and see what the priorities are. But I wouldn't want to push it out much later than early January. There is no.
Really lose people going to warmer climates.
The problem is, you got some. Well, it's a pretty young group here, so I don't know how much discomfort and stuff. But there's no rush from the village that we have to have this done by a certain time. We just want to make sure that we get the participants. Anyways, I think we'll do a poll.
Yep. We'll send that out in the next couple of days. Get that out.
Just to throw this out, how about earlier in December? I mean, if we could have found a date earlier in December, would that be preferable? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All
I
right.
think you ought to pick 3 dates, send out a due.
Yeah, okay. All right, because there's no reason we have to wait 4 weeks before we get together again. No, I don't think.
No.
And we need to get the material to you in advance, so you have an opportunity to look at it. That's really key. So we'll do that.
And so if it's going to be sooner, then we need to get you our thoughts on this within the next week.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would just say, let's just say that. So
Right.
that you
Okay.
have the time you need to, come to some summary conclusions and send that out to us in advance.
Got it. So then what is the date for next week? That's today's the 15th and
It's
7.
Next week is
22nd?
We could get it to you before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. Wednesday before Thanksgiving works.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we'll send that poll out and for dates, and we will remind you in terms of getting your Word document back to us. We'll send the Word document out tomorrow. And so with that, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment or ask a question or anything along those lines? Speak. Can you speak into one of the microphones? There you go.
Karen Lane. I'm a little disturbed by a couple of nuances. I'm not sure that in total, we understand what Bruce Rinker was saying. And what Bruce was saying is that embodied in this final plan is a reason why we make zoning distinctions. We can write the toughest, most rigorous legal zoning law that we can imagine. But if the reasons behind that zoning are not sustainable in an argument in court, that someone will make the argument, you did this for him, and I want you to do the same thing for me. That's as simple as you can say it.
Mhm.
And you will lose in a court if you have a potential developer who disagrees with your zoning, who has the wherewithal to pursue it. May take a few years, maybe more than a few years, but that's the danger. So you have to, in this document, we have to have a significant justification for why we're making zoning distinctions. And you hit it right on the head. The runoff down into the valley is by far the strongest argument for having zoning differential. But there are others, and we have to capture those in this document, really important. Because we have a number of 25-acre lots or 100-acre lots. We could, if you combine that with an aggressive, the word was cluster, but close high density development in return for set-offs. And then you change the size of the set-offs required, which has been discussed. You're asking for disaster, which is exactly what Rob raised. The danger, the hidden danger in that. The two together, very problematic. We have to understand this. Thank you. Appreciate it. You guys are doing great work. This is a very difficult problem. So more power to you. Next meeting, you'll get the report 2 days ahead. Thanks.
I would agree with you that what what Bruce Rinker was saying is exactly what you said. That you have to have a rationale for why you would treat one property different from a neighboring property. And so I think that is a common agreement around land use and how you would treat zoning. So I think that's what this group is charged with doing, is looking at the various areas of the community and trying to achieve that level of distinction in terms of how properties are dealt with. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and by the way, I agree with that comment. I sort of had a view about the elementary school and I apologize. I'm sorry. Yeah, I love the elementary school but you are right. I remember I was driving down River Road at one point, and there was a telephone pole hanging against it wasn't a tree. I'm sorry, it was after that huge ice, our trees, right? And there was a tree hanging against the electrical wires for days. I called the city. I called the village. And it just stayed there for days. I'm surprised somebody didn't die from some electrical issue, but absolutely, that was the smartest thing I think that said. I've been involved in several cities' master planning. This is a master plan. That's what you guys are doing. Zoning is part of that, whether you like it or not. Okay, so wrap your head around that. I mean, having saying that this geographic area around the center of town is going to have this level of use is part of this process. Otherwise, don't do it. Just
can it, don't do it, status quo. That's part of what your job is. Really, the only reason I'm here is this. I'm embarrassed by this city's recycling program. Don't sit here and tell me you want to save 20 acres here and 10 acres here, and you want to save the world, the planet, and all this land, but we can throw anything in a landfill in the city. I'm embarrassed by it. And I didn't see the word recycling anyway. So I came to say that. Please, let's do something about better recycling. That's all I have.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right. Thank you all very much. We're certain we're not going to see you before Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Super. Watch The Crown. Something mindless. Have a nice holiday, everybody.
I think we're good.
In the afternoon.
Sure.
Touch base about
Sure. Yeah, that'd be good. Because we need to know what.
It all worked out. You have to start somewhere. And I was.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm glad you were willing to do that. Who wants your job? Nobody wants your job.
Said you're doing it.
I mean,
Right?
yeah, tomorrow this,
Doing it. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Everybody's got a little different point of view, but okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, I agree. When I can come.
Yeah, absolutely. And you better prepare to say stuff about it.
Yeah, well, that would be nice. Yes, of course, and they
You're
were.
right around, instead of sewer.
Yes.
And give you time to read it, understand it, maybe ask questions.
Think
and have
about it.
discussions.
Right, think about it.
How was your
So-
lunch?
So I missed the, so,
Oh, so Chip saying, someone said, she didn't say, who said that the plan was already written. It's just going through the motion. Said that is.
hey, I heard that
That's
part.
good enough.
I could tell. Yeah, I could
How was your
tell.
lunch with, Mrs. Deacon?
Good.
Good. Does she have views on all this?
Oh, yeah,
Good.
she agrees that, okay, what are the big issues? Yeah. You start there and you define it.
And we prioritize.
Yes.
Deal with all this
You
stuff.
don't have all this other little crap with the sidewalks and trails. Yeah, but you don't need to plan it around people. Yeah. So we talked about that too.
This is the white side. I like this. Felt right.
It's better.
Oh, no, I. It's hard, you know. Yeah, no. Especially when you eat. And so I got up and I tried, and I won't shoot my hand and it fell.
Jay was. Partly, they have their own.
No.
Yeah, Charlie has his own set. Yeah, nobody is telling me.
Okay.
I will.
I used to work on that. You know, Ian. So,
Oh, here you go. Yeah.
so I didn't know. It'll go on
I'd like her to
Well, that's you're doing more regular. Yes. This is.
Yeah, and a little bit over here too, of just, you know, we're okay with the, there's not, oh, this is what he was earlier. Yes. Thank
Oh, yeah. People don't know that I'm part of Right, so he said, oh, partly they get their own. Yeah. She was on. Saying. And sewer, and sewer get their own. Right. The reason for shelter was through the yeah.
I know, we don't really